this is the moment where every religious person, every Catholic has to really ask themselves what exactly they want to stand for. I mean, as a systems analyst, as an atheist and systems analyst, I'm pretty neutral about this. I'm not emotionally involved, but I can tell you that any pyramid organization that's very old or very big will be infested by criminals and psychopaths. This is a law of system physics. So, it doesn't surprise me at all. I expected that. And I also said from the beginning that child rape and child murder, and by the way, also the rape of corpses, both of them have been heinous acts throughout, the centuries and millennia. It is absolutely genetic in us. First, it's the aversion against corpses. Second, for health reasons, evolved for health reasons. And secondly, children who are not actually in the reproductive age. This has always been genetically inscribed in us as being deeply wrong. And for this reason, it's suitable as a control file. So I expected, just from the maths of the system, that this is what we would end up with. But now we have proof, people. I think, as you said last time, this is the point when I think all religious people who love and stand for the values as it's, presented through the front that these criminals have, these people have to really ask themselves, where they're going to donate their money now. And I believe it should go directly to the needy and the those hurting and the poor, instead of going via the Vatican Bank. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, of course. But not only that, Catherine, but it isn't just a matter of individual choice. They're compelled under the law not to give money. Under the law of any land, it says if you give money to a criminal body, you're a complicit actor and you can be arrested. Okay.
Absolutely.
And ignorance of a crime, under the law, ignorance of a crime is never a defense. You can never say, oh, I didn't know he was going to use the money to kill somebody. It doesn't matter. You're an accessory. You paid for it. You can be convicted. So you're committing a criminal act when you put money in a Catholic Church collection plate. But also under international law, when it's called a transnational criminal organization, TNCO, under a convention passed at the UN in 2000. It says when a TNCO is involved in laundering money for organized crime, trafficking human beings, or other criminal acts, their money is forfeited, their property is forfeited, their officers should all be in jail, as will anybody who's an accessory. So under that criteria, the Catholic Church has to be shut down.
No jail term for any of them, and there's going to be no money to be paid to him. So that kind of, made me wonder, what's going on in our world. After all this whole situation, and we finally thought that there was going to be some justice done. Apparently, he's forgiven them, and everything just goes back to normal. And who knows what went on behind closed doors. So I think this is a good topic to lead into what you want to talk about today about the Knights Templar and who else is behind the Black Hand. We know that the Vatican is behind behind all these terrible things that are going on in our world. But who else is in bed with these guys from the Vatican, Santos?
Yeah, well, the people who need to be looked at closely are the money people, really. It's always the money. Follow the money. The money's in Switzerland. And the people who look after the Vatican are the Swiss Guard. And the reason being is because that would be their most lucrative business, the Vatican. But they're up in the hills there in Switzerland, the criminals. They have... they don't participate in any other unions. They are a sovereign state. They don't get involved with anything because they are involved in all of it. They run the whole show.
Seizing the property and assets, like we're going to be during Easter week, that's going to be really turned up to the maximum. Now, during that same period, we can draw the links between the Vatican Bank and these other attacks, right?
Yeah.
The Vatican is heavily invested in energy weapon development. They're all in the arms industry and all of this. They're laundering money for the same people that are doing these crimes. So we can tie the campaigns together, and I think we should be thinking in terms of that mid-April period as a way to kind of kickstart the whole thing. I mean, I think there'd be we could really help each other that way.
The other thing is anything that is, taken, confiscated from the Vatican, I think should be used to pay the victims, the child abuse victims, right. Because this institution hasn't really paid any significant damages, has it?
Never. And in fact, with a few cases when they do, their insurance companies cover it. So the Vatican Bank doesn't lose a penny. Now, there's a thing called right of reparations under international law. When you've been harmed, either as a people or individually, you have a right of reparations. And if they don't willingly give it, you have the right to, in some cases, you sue them in court or make direct reclamations, they call it, in international law. You can go in and seize the assets of these people. So that's what we do. Like they've done that. Native people in Canada have done that. They go in and seize the local Catholic church on their reservation. They boot out the priest. They take over the building.
This is brilliant.
And they have the right of reparation under the international law because for hundreds of years, we've all been ripped off.
Yeah.
Right? We've had fraud perpetrated on us. We have the right to reclaim that wealth stolen from us.
I think that the first people who should read this book are our brothers and sisters in the United States, because their threat is in their own house. The devil is right at home. The devil himself is right in the house. And the devil came here yesterday. Yesterday, the devil came here. Right here. Right here. And it smells of sulfur still today. This table that I am now standing in front of. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, from this rostrum, the President of the United States, the gentleman to whom I refer as the devil, came here, talking as if he owned the world. Truly, as the owner of the world. The house. And the devil came here yesterday. Yesterday, the devil came here. Right here. Right here. And it smells of sulfur still today.
Pick it up. Let me show you. You know what happens to sulfur when you light it? Well, it lights. Catches fire.
Oh, okay.
That's burning sulfur, otherwise known as brimstone.
And my whole life I didn't know what brimstone was.
Well, brimstone just means burning stone in sort of medieval English.
References to fire and brimstone are found throughout the Bible. In fact, they're the preferred instruments of divine retribution. And Rami explains brimstone was used as a fuel throughout the Dead Sea Plain for thousands of years. But no physical evidence has ever been found that burning brimstone once fell from the sky.
So it's another part of the Bible which is remarkably found in the landscape here.
Based on human reality.
Huh. Now does that lend credibility to the idea of Sodom and Gomorrah actually happening?
Well, it certainly makes it credible to the people in this region because they would remember something about a destruction of a city that may have happened possibly through a natural phenomenon or possibly through the intervention of God.
So when they talk about fire and brimstone, this is what they're talking about. How'd you like that coming down on the end?
God! Oh my God! Oh, come on, I gotta pull you back. I gotta pull you back. Oh my God!
And the first time I saw Building 7 come down straight and fast, I realized this is very curious. I hadn't seen it until just about, it's been about 1.5 years now ago. And as soon as I saw it, in a sense, I was hooked. I figured, as a scientist, I can't just ignore this data. I could see that building come straight down. I'd seen demolitions before, controlled demolitions. They look just like that. A kink in the middle, and then that building just comes straight down, almost at free fall speed. Yeah. And pretty quick, I'm learning about molten metal pools under both towers after they collapsed, and Building 7. Now, Building 7 wasn't even hit by a jet, and yet it comes down, and then it's got this molten metal underneath. And where'd that come from? I have a sample of this molten metal. Previously, molten metal here. Just a tiny sample. This is really all we need. I brought along with me at the last minute. I thought, well, I'll throw that in. And by analyzing this, we determined it is not molten aluminum from the plane. Okay. Indeed, it contains a great deal of iron, which is the product of the thermite reaction. Now, thermite can be purchased on eBay, and many people, I show it in my class, physics, and I'll be showing it this fall in my physical science class. It's commonly shown. It's a very brilliant reaction. You get this white flare, this white dust, which is aluminum oxide coming off, and then this yellow hot molten metal, just white yellow hot, flowing out of this reaction. Now this thermite is so hot, this molten iron, especially when you mix sulfur in, now it's called thermate, and it'll just cut through steel, through structural steel, for example, like a knife through butter. And we also see this molten, yellow hot molten metal with white wispy ash pouring out of the South Tower just minutes before its collapse. And I've shown this video, and it's just amazing. The photographs of that, it's in the NIST report, and the evidence is just piling up. This is, it has the characteristics, not of molten aluminum and not of molten, it's not just structural steel that somehow melted, no. It's very little chromium. But it does have sulfur and manganese and some other elements that are characteristic, you see. It's like a fingerprint that the criminal left behind. This carries with it evidence. How was this done? What was used? This chain of events leads me to reluctantly conclude that indeed there does seem to be insider. In other words, not just the hijacked planes, but also others involved setting these thermite cutter charges in the World Trade Center to bring them down.
Now things get a little weird. This is the 1978 version of The Wizard of Oz, The Wiz. Again, we see the Emerald City connected to New York. On arriving at the end of the Yellow Brick Road, Dorothy and her companions go through the circular portal. Through the door, we see 3 pyramids. Behind the pyramid shape, in between the pyramid pillars of the World Trade Center, we see the sphere, the representation of the Kaaba. The inhabitants of Oz dance around the sphere in ritualistic fashion. Fashioned in giant letters over the dome of the sphere, we see the word Oz. Oz, symbols of Pan and Aiwass. Seen smack at the heart, where the new Aeon was ushered in, and where the Stargate was opened.